morning on Friday, August 26, 1988, James Earl Plantz, 33, was found dead in his pickup. Prosecutors alleged that Plantz was bitten with baseball bats at his Midwest City home and then burned in his pickup at a secluded location. The following Monday, police arrested the victim's wife, Marilyn Kay PLANTZ, on a murder charge. Marilyn Kay PLANTZ was born on the 19th of October, 1960. Investigators believed she had paid someone to kill her husband. William Clifford Bryson, 18, and Clinton Eugene McKimble, 18, were arrested the next day. Marilyn Plantz, William Bryson and Clinton McKimble were all charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors announced that they would seek the death penalty. Police stated that collection on 2 life insurance policies on James Plantz, which were worth $319,000, was the probable reason behind his murder. Prosecutors stated that McKimble and Bryson were hired by Marilyn Plantz to kill her husband. On October 20th, prosecutors agreed to let McKimble plead guilty to murder and be sentenced to life imprisonment. As part of the agreement, he would testify against Plantz and Bryson. At a preliminary hearing for Bryson and Plantz, Roderick Eugene Ferris testified that Plantz said the murder would have to look like an accident. He also stated that a few days earlier Bryson had said his girlfriend, Marilyn Plantz, had called and was crying because her husband had bitten her. In videotaped testimony, Bryson told police how he and an accomplice beat James Plantz. Bryson said, "I didn't have no specific reason why I killed him. All I was thinking while I was beating him was all the times she came up to me with a black eye and crying. I didn't like that." In the videotape, Bryson said that he loves Marilyn Plantz. He also stated that Marilyn said her husband had threatened to kill himself and her if she divorced him. Plantz denied any role in the killing of her husband. She told police they had a perfect marriage. Defense attorneys argued that Bryson and Plantz should have separate trials, because the defendants had inconsistent, mutually antagonistic defenses. Oklahoma County District Judge Charles Owens ruled that they would be tried together. Joyce Gilchrist, a chemist for the Oklahoma City Police Department, testified in the trial of Plantz and Bryson. Recently, the FBI studied 8 cases on which Gilchrist had worked, finding serious errors in 75% of them. At the trial in March 1989, jurors took less than 3 hours to find Plantz and Bryson guilty of the murder of James Plantz, of conspiracy to murder, of recruiting others to help, and of arson. Neither Plantz nor Bryson testified during the trial. The next day, jurors deliberated for 5 hours before voting in favor of death sentences for both Marilyn Plantz and William Bryson. They were each also sentenced to 100 years for recruiting others to help in the murder, 10 years for conspiracy to murder, and a 15-year sentence for burning the pickup truck. Trina Plantz Wells, 21, who is the daughter of Marilyn and Jim Plantz, pled for the board to spare her mother's life. Wells was reported as having cried throughout the entire hearing. She reconciled with her mother after having had no contact with her for 13 years. In a videotaped statement, Wells said, "My father's gone and we need a mom, whether or not she is in prison. We need to have a relationship with her. I really don't want my mom to die, that is my hope. I've had 13 years to think about it. I love my father. He was my hero. But it is not fair to me to have to go to another funeral and devastating death like this." Karen Lowry, the sister of Jim Plantz, asked the board to let the execution take place. She stated that Marilyn did not show remorse during the preliminary hearing or the trial. She also stated that she believed the death penalty can deter criminals. In a barely audible voice, Plantz apologized to the families, mentioning each sibling, parent and child by name. "It's hard to think about living the rest of my life in prison. But now I have a reason to live. I want to live for my daughter and, hopefully, for my son." The Oklahoma Criminal Defense Trial Lawyers Association called for an immediate moratorium on executions in Oklahoma, beginning with that of Marilyn Plantz. Plantz becomes the 11th condemned inmate, and the second female, to be put to death that year in Oklahoma, and the 41st overall since the state resumed capital punishment in 1990. Plantz becomes the 28th condemned inmate, to be put to death that year in the USA, and the 711th overall since America resumed executions on January 17, 1977. Marilyn Kay PLANTZ, 40, was executed on May 1, 2001, via lethal injection at Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McKimble. Plantz was sentenced to death for the 1988 murder of her husband, James Earl Plantz. William Bryson, who was executed on June 15, 2000, was also sentenced to death for this murder. Clinton Eugene McKimble was also charged with first-degree murder in this case. He pled guilty and was given a sentence of life imprisonment in exchange for his testimony against Plantz and Bryson. Plantz was the second woman executed since statehood in 1907. As well as the second woman executed that year. Her execution also marked Oklahoma's climb to number 2 in executions per capita. Only Delaware has a higher per capita execution rate. Almost 13 years after Jim Plantz was bitten and burned to death in a murder for insurance money scheme, his wife, Marilyn Kay PLANTZ, died by lethal injection on the night of May 1, 2001, for her part in the slaying. Marilyn Plantz was pronounced dead at 9:11 p.m. after being injected with a poisonous mix of drugs at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. True to her recent embrace of Christianity, her last words offered spiritual encouragement to her family and supporters. "I have overcome the world," she said. Strapped to a gurney, Plantz thanked her family and the 7 people who witnessed the execution for her. They included 3 cousins, several spiritual advisors, an attorney and an investigator. "I want to tell all of my family that I love them very much, especially Trina and Chris," Plantz said, referring to her 2 children, who did not attend. "What God has given me is love, and I have overcome the world. And I just want y'all to know that nothing, absolutely nothing, can separate us from the love of God. And if y'all want to see me again, you must be born again." After the execution began, Plantz made several snorting sounds and then fell quiet. She was pronounced dead a short time later. Her last meal was served Monday the 30th of April 2001. She requested 1 chicken taco salad, 1 Mexican pizza, 2 enchiladas, 2 chicken soft tacos, 1 order of cinnamon twists, 1 piece of pecan pie and 2 cans of Coca-Cola. Her death sentence came after her plot to kill her husband and collect a $300,000 life insurance policy unraveled in August 1988. Jim Plantz, a press supervisor for the Oklahoman, was ambushed by William Clifford Bryson and Clinton Eugene McKimble as he came home from work. Marilyn Plantz recruited the pair to carry out the killing. Thank you for watching Death Row.